You're standing in a parking lot in 2005. Rows of cars stretch across the asphalt. SUVs, sedans, pickup trucks. They roar to life with deep engine sounds that signal power and status. Now, imagine pulling up in an electric car. Back then, people wouldn't admire it, they'd laugh. Electric cars were slow, weird, uncool. They looked like science experiments designed by engineers who had never met a car enthusiast. Most people believed electric vehicles would never compete with gasoline cars. But today, electric cars are some of the most exciting vehicles in the world. They're faster than Ferraris, they're smarter than smartphones, and one brand turned them into a global obsession: Tesla. But here's the real question. How did a tiny startup with almost no resources manage to transform electric cars from boring environmental projects into one of the most desirable products on Earth? How did Tesla make electric cars cool? To understand that, we need to go back to a time when the idea of an electric car succeeding sounded completely ridiculous. Because before Tesla changed the world, electric cars were basically dead. For over a century, gasoline dominated the road. In fact, in the early 1900s, electric cars actually existed before modern gasoline vehicles took over. They were quiet, smooth, and easy to drive. But once Henry Ford introduced mass production with the Model T, gasoline cars became cheap, powerful, and widely available. Electric cars couldn't compete. Gas stations were everywhere, batteries were expensive, range was terrible. So electric vehicles slowly disappeared. By the late 20th century, they were almost forgotten. Then something strange happened in the 1990s. A few governments started worrying about pollution and climate change, so they pushed automakers to experiment with electric vehicles again. Companies like GM created early EV prototypes. One famous example was the GM EV1. It was sleek for its time, fully electric, and surprisingly loved by the few people who drove it. But there was a problem. Automakers didn't actually want to build electric cars. They were expensive, risky, and they threatened the entire business model built around gasoline engines. So the EV1 was quietly discontinued, and electric vehicles once again faded away. To most people, EVs looked like a failed experiment. But behind the scenes, a group of engineers in Silicon Valley believed something different. They believed electric cars failed because the idea was bad. They failed because the execution was terrible. And they had a radical idea. What if electric cars weren't designed to be practical, cheap, and boring? What if they were designed to be exciting? That idea would become Tesla. Tesla didn't start as a giant car company. In fact, when it launched in 2003, almost nobody believed it would survive. The founders, Martin Eberhard and Mark Tarpenning, weren't traditional auto executives. They were tech entrepreneurs, which meant they saw cars differently. To them, cars weren't just mechanical machines. They were products, experiences, platforms for innovation. But there was still one major challenge. Electric cars had a reputation problem. If Tesla launched a small, eco-friendly commuter car, nobody would care. So they did something brilliant. Instead of building a cheap electric car first, they built a sports car. And not just any sports car, a ridiculously fast one, the Tesla Roadster. When Tesla revealed the Roadster in 2006, it shocked the entire automotive industry because it didn't look like a science project. It looked like a supercar. Under the hood, it used thousands of lithium-ion batteries, similar to the ones used in laptops. That allowed Tesla to create something that seemed impossible at the time, an electric car with over 200 miles of range. But the real surprise was performance. The Roadster could go from 0 to 60 in about 4 seconds. That made it faster than many sports cars on the road. Suddenly, electric cars weren't slow anymore. They were fast. And fast cars are cool. This was Tesla's first big marketing move. They didn't sell electric cars as environmental products. They sold them as performance machines. And people started paying attention. But Tesla still had a massive problem. Building cars is one of the hardest businesses on Earth. Automakers spend billions on factories, supply chains, safety testing, and engineering. Tesla had almost none of that, and they were burning money fast. That's when a new character entered the story, Elon Musk. At the time, Musk was already known in Silicon Valley. He had made millions from PayPal and was investing in ambitious companies like SpaceX. When Musk first saw Tesla, he became its biggest investor and eventually its chairman. But Tesla was still extremely fragile. Delays, engineering challenges, production issues. At one point, Tesla was just weeks from bankruptcy. But Musk believed something others didn't. He believed Tesla wasn't just building cars, it was building the future of transportation. So he poured more money into the company and eventually took over as CEO. And that's when Tesla's real strategy began. The plan was surprisingly simple. Start with a very expensive sports car, then use the money and technology to build a cheaper luxury sedan, then eventually build a mass-market car. This became known as Tesla's secret master plan. The Roadster proved electric cars could be exciting, but Tesla's next vehicle would prove they could be practical too. In 2012, Tesla launched the Model S. This car completely changed how people thought about electric vehicles. First, it looked stunning. No weird eco-car design, no awkward shapes, just a sleek, luxury sedan. Second, it was unbelievably fast. Some versions of the Model S could go from 0 to 60 in under 3 seconds. That's supercar territory. Third, it introduced something revolutionary: software. Tesla treated cars like smartphones on wheels. They added a massive touchscreen dashboard. But the real magic came later: over-the-air updates. Instead of buying a car that slowly becomes outdated, Tesla owners could receive software upgrades remotely. New features, performance improvements, even new driving capabilities. Imagine waking up and discovering your car got faster overnight. That was unheard of in the automotive industry, and it made Tesla feel futuristic. But Tesla's biggest innovation wasn't just the car, it was the ecosystem around it. One of the biggest fears people had about electric cars was range anxiety. What if the battery runs out? Where do you charge? Tesla solved that with the supercharger network. Instead of waiting for governments or other companies to build charging stations, Tesla built its own global charging infrastructure, fast chargers placed along highways and cities. This meant Tesla drivers could travel long distances without worrying about charging. Suddenly, electric cars weren't just city vehicles, they were road trip machines. But Tesla still needed something more powerful than technology. They needed a brand. And Tesla's branding strategy was unlike anything the auto industry had ever seen. Traditional car companies spend billions on advertising, TV commercials, billboards, Super Bowl ads. Tesla spent almost nothing. Instead, Tesla relied on something far more powerful: attention. And much of that attention came from Elon Musk himself. Musk wasn't just a CEO, he was a storyteller. He talked about colonizing Mars, building hyperloops, creating artificial intelligence, saving the planet. Every tweet, interview, and product launch created massive media coverage, and Tesla became part of that larger futuristic narrative. Buying a Tesla didn't just mean buying a car, it meant joining a movement, a vision of the future. And that vision spread rapidly online. Tesla owners became passionate advocates. They shared videos, acceleration tests, Autopilot demonstrations, software updates. Tesla didn't need ads. Its customers became the marketing department. Then came the next turning point, the Model 3. This was Tesla's most important car because it aimed to bring electric vehicles to the masses. But the launch was chaotic. Production delays, factory problems, what Elon Musk famously called production hell. Tesla struggled to manufacture the Model 3 at scale. At one point, Musk even slept on the factory floor. But despite all the chaos, demand was enormous. Hundreds of thousands of people placed pre-orders. Why? Because Tesla had already changed the perception of electric cars. They weren't boring anymore. They were cool, they were fast, they were tech-driven, and they represented the future. By the time the Model 3 finally reached mass production, it became one of the best-selling electric cars in the world. But Tesla's impact went far beyond its own vehicles. It forced the entire automotive industry to change. For years, traditional automakers had dismissed electric vehicles, but Tesla proved there was real demand. Now, companies like Ford, Volkswagen, BMW, and Mercedes are investing billions into EV development. Electric cars are no longer a niche experiment. They're becoming the new standard. But perhaps Tesla's greatest achievement wasn't technological, it was psychological. Tesla changed how people feel about electric cars. Before Tesla, EVs were associated with compromise, slow acceleration, limited range, boring design. After Tesla, electric cars became associated with speed, innovation, and status. Owning a Tesla became a symbol of being forward-thinking, tech-savvy, environmentally conscious, and part of the future. This shift in perception is incredibly powerful because consumer behavior is driven by emotion. People don't just buy products, they buy identity, and Tesla understood that better than almost any automaker before it. But Tesla's story is still unfolding. The company continues pushing boundaries with new technologies, Autopilot and full self-driving systems, gigafactories producing batteries at massive scale, energy storage and solar integration, even humanoid robots. Whether Tesla succeeds in all these ambitions remains uncertain, but one thing is clear. Tesla didn't just build electric cars, it redefined what a car could be. A car that updates like software, accelerates like a rocket, and connects drivers to a vision of the future. That's how Tesla made electric cars cool. Not by convincing people to sacrifice performance for sustainability, but by proving sustainability could be better, faster, smarter, more exciting. And in doing so, Tesla triggered one of the biggest transformations in the history of transportation, from a struggling startup in Silicon Valley to one of the most influential car companies on the planet. And the road ahead might be even more interesting than the journey that got us here. Because the real story isn't just about Tesla, it's about the future of mobility. A world where cars drive themselves, where cities are quieter and cleaner, where transportation is powered by electricity instead of gasoline. And if that future arrives sooner than expected, it will be because one company decided that electric cars shouldn't just be good for the planet, they should be cool. If you enjoyed this deep dive into the story behind one of the most disruptive companies in modern history, make sure to subscribe to Brand Story Lab for more business documentaries exploring the ideas, strategies, and bold decisions that shape the brands around us. And until the next story, stay curious.